Hello, we're going to look at sowing some tomatoes and sweet peppers today. So what we need is these kind of size pots, so 3-inch pots, and you're going to fill it with a light seeding compost. So you're filling it to the very top, and these are ones I've pre-watered. So you're leaving them in kind of tepid, warm water and just to soak up from the bottom, so you're not disturbing the soil. So your peppers and tomatoes, you're going to sow in very similar ways. So they both need 21, 22 degrees temperature to germinate. So you're going to try and leave them either in the top of your fridge or somewhere where you know it's quite warm. And the tomatoes usually take between 7 to 10 days. The chilies or sweet peppers can take a little bit longer, so they can take up to a month. But often the ones I've done so far this year have taken a little over around the 10 days or so. So they're both going a 1/2 inch deep, so you're measuring it on your dibber, and I'm doing 2 seeds per pot, and you'll be treating them then just slightly differently. So the pepper we're using is sweet pepper, so it's called sweet pepper mixed. So you're getting a mixed variety of a few different ones. So you can see the seed in them is quite tomato-like. I don't know if you can see this. So, and you're only putting 1 in each hole. So it's a 1/2 inch down, putting 1 in each. Remember to always fill your pots to the top. So if you don't fill them to the top, what will happen is they'll get leggy because they have to go that little bit further to get into the light. So you can start your chilies and sweet peppers from January, but I prefer to do them in February quite often because you get there's more light intensity there, so when they do germinate they're not stretching to get to light, so it prevents them getting a bit leggy. So the other thing I'd like to do once you've planted them is to put a small bit of sand just on the top, and just a sprinkling, because they can take up to a month to germinate. In that time they can get a little bit mossy, it can get a little bit waterlogged, and it can rot the seed. So by keeping sand on, it keeps it nice and sterile, and you prevent that from happening. So in terms of moisture, you want to keep it moist to the touch. So every couple of days you should come back and touch the top. If it feels moist to touch, it's fine. If you pick up a bit of the soil, squeeze it between your thumb and forefinger. If drops come out, it's too moist. So you don't stop watering it for a number of days and test it again. You can also leave it, if you think you've overwatered it, leave it on newspaper for a while, let the newspaper draw out some of the water. So that's our sweet pepper. So you do the exact same thing for chili peppers. And then for our tomato, we're going to do something similar. And find a packet. So we're using a Sun Gold. It's a cherry tomato. So for anyone who doesn't have any outdoor, if people don't have a polytunnel, what I would recommend is growing the cherry tomatoes. So as long as you have a sunny south-facing area that you could grow them, they will grow perfectly well outside. And you can see here, there's a smaller seed, slightly smaller. Now this is optional. The Native Americans used to put the tomato seed under their tongue for a small bit, for a couple of minutes. I'm going to try this. And they said part of your DNA goes into the seed. I don't know if it works or not. And perhaps it's a way that it breaks down some of the seed casing to make it easier to germinate. but we'll give it a go. We'll do one under the tongue and one normal. So again, you're popping one on either side. And I want to show you ones that I planted in January, just to give you an idea. So again, you don't need to do the stand on top of the tomato. I'm going to leave this one in my mouth for a minute just to see if it works. And these are ones that I did earlier, a couple of weeks ago. So what you're aiming for is that the seed leaves will come up and stop at around that height. And I'm going to show you one that's a bit further advanced. So these guys, the seed leaves have come up and the true leaves are starting to come in the middle of these. I don't know if you can see them there. So, and after that, the stem will thicken up. So as you're passing them every day, if you brush them and blow on them, you're encouraging them to get a little bit thicker. So you're encouraging them to thicken up. And I don't know if you can see that after a while you start to see small hairs appear on the stem. So that is the tomato trying to put out advantageous roots. No, hold on. That's one. No, it's my DNA one. And I'm going to stick into my hand now. It's full of my DNA. So the idea with the DNA one is that they think it's imbued with parts of your DNA, and that it will be a tomato specific to you and it will cure all the things that are wrong with you. So we'll give it a go. I'm going to label it that I know. So and I'll do the DNA one on that side. So it's a tomato and a sun gold. So you may have seen, I may have shown you, that this one is an F1 seed. So F1 seeds, they're hybrids seeds. So two different varieties are bred to give you certain characteristics, but the F1 means that you then can't save the seed from that tomato when it grows little tomatoes. You can't keep the seed and grow it on again. They will be sterile. But the F1 are usually more reliable, or they're bigger croppers, or they'll have some beneficial effect. I tend to use both, so you can see this one isn't F1. So it'll always say it on the pack if it is. This is one, a marrow, and you can see again it's F1. They tend to be a little more expensive and you get less of them, but you'll tend to get better results, or they'll be better croppers or more disease resistant, and they'll have different qualities that you might like. So the second part of the tomatoes is as you move them on from pot to pot, so as you move that onto a bigger pot, and I don't have one here, you'll bury more of the stem as you go, and you'll keep doing that each time you move it to a bigger container. And in that way, the hairs on the stem will start to turn into roots. And as you're moving it from bigger pot to bigger pot, you're burying it each time a little bit. And by the time you're ready to put it out in its grow bag or in a bed, it will have quite a decent root structure, so up to around a foot of a root structure. So it'll have a fine big root, and it will be able to kind of withstand growing quite tall and heavy, and it will be able to absorb water quite well. So tomatoes, again, they're the same family as potatoes, the Solaniferaceae, and the same as the deadly nightshade, aubergines, tobacco. They like wet roots, so they'll be quite thirsty and hungry, but they don't like their leaves to be wet. So you have to, as they grow up, either a support or a string or whatever, you'll have to continually remove leaves to allow air to circulate around them. Because if it gets humid, it will be prone to botrytis or grey mould. So the grey mould will affect the leaves and the fruit or the tomato. And they'll spread over the rest of your crop. Okay, and once you can keep picking tomatoes as long as they stay ripe into kind of around October, November. So we'll do a little bit more around when we're potting on our tomatoes into bigger pots as time goes on. Okay, thank you.